The Diablo dev team just announced some insane changes that are going to be coming in the next couple weeks, and I'm going to share all of those right here with you now because they're really big and really great for the game. Last night, the Diablo dev team did a live stream talking about a bunch of changes they're planning on making and taking in community feedback so that way they can make their game as best as they possibly can so we all enjoy it and get the best experience possible. Now, one of the big gripes initially in the past week or so since release has been XP farming and XP dungeons. So XP farming and XP dungeons have really taken a hit, especially since certain dungeons keep getting released all over the internet, and Blizzard feels the need to kind of mitigate that and nerf those dungeons into the dirt. And with that being said, as you get into mid-game and late-game activities, the Nightmare dungeons are by far the most fun and should be the most rewarding activities considering their increasing difficulty. The dev team announced big changes are going to be coming to Nightmare dungeons. They're going to essentially make a ton of quality of life changes here as well as the rewards. So the first big change is they're going to make it so that Nightmare dungeons, when you enter a Nightmare dungeon and you complete it and you start a new one, you can immediately just teleport straight to it, instead of having to go on the map and search around and finally find it and then run all the way to it. There's a lot of time in between there that you're not actually doing anything, but we're just running around the map. So that's the first thing, is that they're going to add that teleport feature so you can jump from map to map to map, or from dungeon to dungeon over and over again as long as you want to. So once you complete one, you can go straight to another one and just keep on rolling to allow you to get kind of more XP and level faster, so you don't have to spend most of your time running around the map in between those activities. Additionally, since it's a mid and end-game activity that's honestly really important to the game, they've also already started discussions about increasing the XP for completion, the XP for monsters in these Nightmare dungeons, and the overall rewards that you're going to be getting out of them to kind of boost the overall presence. And the reason you should be playing Nightmare dungeons is to get good rewards and good XP, and they're going to boost that hopefully to a reasonable amount, so that way that is the main primary activity, because that's the activity we all want to be doing. So that is going to make Nightmare dungeons way more efficient, and at that point, once they make that change in the next couple weeks, it's definitely going to be the meta for leveling your character, getting XP and farming, and that's going to be the ideal way that you're going to be able to level up your characters very quickly. And it's going to reduce a lot of this running around time that we have in the game. Now, one thing regarding overall dungeons and other content in general is elite and mob density changes. So recently, as y'all know, there have been a ton of mob density changes that have been applied to a lot of the dungeons that people are currently XP farming. And while they didn't necessarily say they're going to specifically add more mob density into the game, they give a hint that they could definitely do it if the community kind of came together and decided that was the thing that needed to be done. They hinted that they did have the capability to do it, as they obviously do. By taking away density, they can just add it just as easily. And if the community and they see it trending in that direction where they need to do that, they can pretty much flip a switch and make that change pretty fast. So that is a possibility coming in the near future as well. Another huge change, now as you can see for your alt character specifically, when you get on your alt character, you don't have any of this stuff discovered. You have to rediscover the entire map, which is very, very annoying. And if you look at our Renown system, obviously you still have the rewards that you get from unlocking for all characters on a realm, meaning this bottom row. So you still have the skill points, the obol capacity, etc. But additionally, you also want these bonuses at the top because they give you a decent amount of stuff for starting a new alt. And one big change they're going to make is making so that all the areas, if discovered on your other character, are discovered automatically on your alt, so that way when you actually go to the map, you'll be able to teleport and see everything, so that way you can go to each place, and that way you don't have to run and discover every one of these new areas you can't see, because not seeing an area and having to rediscover it is going to take an insane amount of time that obviously we don't want to spend. And then they're also going to additionally give us the altars of Lilith, so if you have these already discovered on your other character, these will all be ported over as well, and both of these will count towards your overall renown. So if you have all of these completed for each area, you're basically going to jump maybe 1, 2, almost maybe 3 renown slots for having these two fully completed, meaning you'll get the bonus XP, bonus XP, bonus XP, and the gold obviously. And it'll just put you that much closer to being able to kind of level up faster, and it'll be an overall better quality of life experience since, you know, we can actually see the map on a new character. And again, these are renown changes that apply specifically to alts. For seasonal characters specifically, there's going to be additional things that you're going to kind of have to re-unlock or redo. But for our alt characters, like I said, those renown changes to give us access to the whole map and some things that port over is going to give us a big quality of life changes that when we actually make an alt, we actually want to play it and not have to redo the entire game. Also, one of the things they're going to be looking at in the next month or so, which will kind of include a new UI item, is going to be gems. So what they plan on doing is taking these gems that are taking up a ton of your inventory space, not only in your actual chest, but in your actual inventory when you pick them up. What they plan on doing is moving these gems into your materials tab, You can see right here when we go to our materials tab and we have all of our materials listed here, they plan on adding these gems here so that way you can get them and they can just stack in the background, and then as you use them you can kind of just pull them from the pool and you don't have to worry about constantly stacking these, because let's be honest, the amount of time you spent picking up gems, putting them in here, moving them around in your inventory is way too much. It could be easily solved by putting in here, and that's what they're going to do to make that process a little bit easier. So hopefully we can have this room for better stuff that we actually want. Additionally, they're planning on updating hardcore character fixes and stability issues. Obviously, the stability issues is a work in progress most of the time, because for me, the servers have been okay. Every once in a while you get pretty big lag spikes and jitters in your game. Now sometimes I can't tell if that's just my internet or not, although my internet is pretty good, but definitely the server sometimes does have performance and stability issues, so work to fix those as much as possible, especially regarding lags and server disconnects. And now, like I mentioned, one of the big things here with hardcore characters is they plan on trying to fix the lagging and disconnecting issue, and they plan to fix it by kind of putting in a remedy. So essentially there's going to be a scroll of escape, and if that is in your inventory and you get booted or disconnected from the game somehow, it's actually going to teleport you to a safe spot instead of just keeping you in the dungeon or basically allowing you to die. So hopefully the next time you're in a hardcore dungeon, if you do load wrong or you do disconnect, that will hopefully save you once that's implemented. Now that's not technically a fix-all, because if you're in the dungeon and you're just lagging around and you haven't actually disconnected, that scroll I don't believe is going to save you at all. So you can still die and lose your hardcore character that way, but that's going to have to be a band-aid fix until they can fix something more permanent, but that will hopefully prevent a decent amount of the deaths due to disconnects. Another thing they discussed is talking about buffs to resource generation. Now I know buffs to resource generation for some characters is okay, and for some it isn't. Some characters, especially early on, are having troubles kind of keeping their resource generation up and active. Now once you get an end game, there's a lot of ways for a lot of characters to actually get that to a point where it does regenerate very, very well. And I think during the beginning of the game, you shouldn't necessarily have maxed out, Fury or maxed out mana all the time, because you shouldn't be overpowered at the beginning of the game. That's not how it works. They didn't necessarily say they were going to implement these, but they said if eventually they realized they needed to, I'm assuming for buffs and other things for specific characters, if certain ones were underperforming and needed a buff, they would consider providing those, depending on how those characters kind of play out, I guess, through this beginning kind of pre-launch stage in season 1. So that's one thing to look at, just to keep in mind, because they have discussed it, but it's not a for sure thing. They can definitely have the ability, obviously, to do it though. Another discussion is around group play. So one thing specifically a lot of games have, obviously, is matchmaking and the ability to, maybe if you go into a dungeon, to matchmake with other people. That way you can get other people to help you, and the experience buffs on top of that. And I'm sure that involves maybe scaling to some degree. So there are some intricacies there, and again, they're not 100% implementing that, but they've definitely discussed it, because I think it is a feature that could be useful in some cases, and in some cases maybe not, but it is a possibility, because a lot of games do have that feature. So maybe matchmaking specifically for dungeons or Nightmare dungeons or things like that might be a possibility in the future, and that's just something to keep in mind. As we all know, they're constantly throwing out balance updates, patches, and fixes for the game, and they're doing it very, very frequently, and I only assume they're going to get more kind of stable and more precise as we go on and kind of get into season 1 of Diablo 4. And additionally, season 1 is very, very soon. Now I believe it's slated for mid-July, so that's going to bring us some pretty drastic changes to the game, I'm sure, along with like a battle pass and a bunch of other different tiers and things that we should hope to see when that comes out. But until then, these are some pretty major updates we're getting from the actual dev team, which is always great to see, because mostly they're taking the community feedback and applying that to the game. And as we know, a lot of games nowadays just take our feedback and throw it in the garbage. So let me know if you're looking forward to them in the comments below, and like this video if you haven't already, and check out this video on the left or the right for awesome Diablo content. That being said, peace.